Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nordic Sound channel. As always, I am your host, Jameson Foster, and today I have with me Mr. Visy Bloodaxe, a highly requested guest for me to have on the channel. We've been going back and forth for a few months now, and he is finally here. Visy, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm great, thank you. Really, really nice to be in the podcast. So, really cool. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good myself. It's been very windy here in Colorado. We've had just 60-mile-an-hour winds. I don't know what that is in kilometers, just for the last 3 days. So it's almost had my house blow down, it feels like. But other than that, doing fine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it gets pretty windy here with the Rocky Mountains. But I am so looking forward to getting to talk about ancient instruments with you because you have quite the collection, and it seems like you know your way around all of them to judge from the little clips you put on Instagram. So, Visy, my first question for you is sort of your background as a musician, because I find it very rare that musicians start at a young age with tall harpas, the saws, lyres, and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So I'm curious where it all started for you.
it was not the case. I started as a musician playing electric guitar, like
Okay.
many people, I guess,
Mhm.
you know. And I wanted to play guitar, and my parents told me, you have a Spanish guitar there, you played, or that's it. And I saved some money and bought myself one, and that's how it started. Yeah. But yeah, that was my beginning. Electric guitar, and yeah, I remember I was practicing every minute I had. Not doing so good at the school, but playing guitar.
I was the same way, except it was electric bass, so I sympathize with you. No, I didn't know that you were also in a metal band. What is the name of that metal band?
It is called corrupto, or in the English accent, corrupto.
Okay.
But
All right. Awesome. So yeah, I can we can definitely talk about that a little bit later. So you finally get your electric guitar. But did you ever cave or give in at least a little bit with trying the Spanish guitar like your parents wanted you to, or
no,
was there no chance you were going to do that?
zero. No, 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 zero. I
Uh,
played I played that guitar many years later because I wanted to study guitar.
yeah.
And in the area that I was living, electric guitar, it wasn't very easy to find a teacher or
Okay.
classes. So I was doing classes in the conservatoire, I
Mhm.
think, classical guitar.
Cool.
And I used that guitar.
All right, so it
But
finally came back around.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So you went to conservatory, or was this a thing where you were able to just take some classes without being enrolled, or were you an actual conservatory student?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was. I didn't finish it,
Okay.
but yeah, I was. I don't know if it's the same in the States, but back in Spain where I was doing it, it was
Mhm.
like 3 levels.
Okay.
I stopped like in the middle of the middle, something like there.
Okay. And did you go to conservatory for that Spanish guitar, or did you go for some other purpose?
Well, I went to, yeah, to learn music theory, to learn music,
Okay.
but
Just
I was
general
using,
music.
yeah, the classical guitar. That was the instrument I was playing.
Okay, this is awesome. I had no idea about any of this. So is the reason that you ultimately went to conservatory because of what you just mentioned, where instead of doing your schoolwork, you were too busy playing the electric guitar? And once it came time to decide like what to do, you just were like, well, I like music, so I'm going to go into the conservatory.
Yeah, I started working and also doing the classes in the evenings. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Because I was a conservatory student myself, so I know all about what you were probably going through in those ear training and music theory classes.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a forge that many of us are made in. Just getting hammered away by those conservatory teachers.
Yeah. And the problem I had is that I started a bit late.
Hmm.
So the people in my classes, they were like 5 or 6 years younger than me.
Okay.
That at that age, I think I was maximum 20 or something like it.
Okay.
At that age,
All right.
to me, they were kids. It wasn't very.
That is fascinating. Okay, so I know that obviously you didn't stick with classical guitar. You ended up going your own way after you spent some time in the conservatory.
Oh well, for you to understand how much of a pain in the ass for them I was in in the auditions, our exams,
Okay.
they were giving us to choose like a piece of our election,
Mhm.
and several times I played Morbid Angel or yeah, yeah,
I love it. I have a classmate here right now in my musicology PhD, who is also very much like how I'm assuming you were, where metal at all costs, because we're in this musicology thing where you're expected to be like academic or scholarly and all of that, and he is, but he's also never apologetic about his metalhead side. Whereas me, I
yeah.
sort of like turn it off and on depending on the setting that I'm in. But he will like show up to class in a Cannibal Corpse shirt and then give a presentation on like gore and stuff in the artwork of Cannibal Corpse, completely straight faced to a class of people who are not used to that sort of thing. And he's like, hey, it's what I love. So I feel like you
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
you
man.
two are very similar in that way. So where I wanted to go with this is, so clearly you didn't stick with it, but is there anything in particular from your conservatory experience that that either stayed with you or that you have sort of kept with you as you have gone further and further into your music career?
Yeah, I have got a love relationship with minor scales.
Okay. As we all do.
Because yeah, 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 I got forced to play like major scales,
Mhm.
like pieces that were in a major key, and I didn't enjoy it very much, so I haven't gone back to it neither.
I love it.
But
So was
yeah,
it, yeah, so it was more about like at least in those theory classes you learn a lot more types of minor scales and you learn how to work with them a little bit more in depth, and so that is something that you've sort of kept with
yeah,
experimenting throughout.
and because I like them, I kind of
Mhm.
investigated more in depth, like all the minor modes and all of
Mhm.
those things on the guitar, but not so much with the major ones.
Okay.
Never. I just it never. I don't know. Never sparked.
Yeah, yeah, that's valid. I love how just blunt that answer is, just like, I don't like major, I like all the minor. And that, especially if for those who follow you and watch your little clips, you very clearly know your way around minor scales of various kinds. You sort of know. I'm always impressed at how you sort of know how to play with them more instead of just sticking to the literal scale itself. You sort of like understand them on a level where it's making sense to me that that's what stuck with you the most.
I think it's because another thing that I kept from the conservatory
Mhm.
is to sometimes not to use music theory as they taught me,
Yep.
because if you go in that way, you end, being another person sounding the same, I guess.
Yeah, I completely sympathize with you. So as valuable as my learning experience was with music theory, it did take many years for me to maybe unlearn is the right word, but
Yeah,
you are right. Because we are taught, especially in a conservatory, we are taught how to use music theory the way that it has typically been used in classical music. And in as we try to do our best and get the good grades that that we want, we sort of forget how to be ourselves in the process, and that is very difficult to unlearn.
yeah. I had a time where the kind of everything that I wanted to write sounded like, ah, you know, it sounds like a MIDI, not like a guitar.
Yeah, yeah, This is such a, so I think this is just such a good topic to sort of dive into, because I know that many of us who have been to music school or conservatory like that have struggled with this. And I guess the one question that I want to land on with this experience that I'm learning about you is, was there anything in particular that you did to sort of find yourself or find your way back to self-expression rather than writing in the way that you were taught to write in like music theory? Was there anything in particular, like a practice or an experience that you used to
Well,
sort of, yeah, to relearn?
in part, it was done by force,
Okay.
not because I always have been playing in metal bands, like
Hmm.
extreme metal bands,
Yeah, yeah.
and well, other bands as well, but especially with one of the bands,
Hmm.
I had to learn how to play out of tempo
Okay.
because we couldn't use click tracks and the drummer was going out of tempo. But now I kind of value a lot
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it stopped me from being in that loop. Like I always was counting like ding, 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 have to be in the exact tempo. And yeah, in a way, I trained myself to not to.
Yeah. So yeah, tempo is a good start, because I remember I had something very similar to that, but not with metal. It was with American folk music,
Mhm.
because I play a lot of finger style blues on guitar. So like Mississippi John Hurt, or country blues is what it's called. And
Yeah,
I
I've seen your
remember,
new project. I've
oh,
seen.
thanks, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
It's great.
thank you. I appreciate that. And sort of like playing guitar, I had always been such a stickler for getting the tempo, or to getting a solid tempo down. But then one day, just out of curiosity, because music school taught me to be this way, I was like, "Oh, what tempo is Mississippi John Hurt playing at?" And so I tried to hold a metronome up to one of his records, and I immediately realized he's not holding a solid beat. But
Yeah,
I had never noticed that when just listening. And so I realized that I was putting this pressure on myself to be like a metronome when no one else plays that way. So I feel you on that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's well crazy.
It is, yeah, yeah. No, I have a feeling though that, like, because I've seen how you have been immersing yourself or experiencing folk music of different styles. I can tell from the different instruments that you pick up. Has folk music played any role in how you've sort of learned to look at music differently than how you were taught at conservatory?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much. Yeah,
Okay, cool, man. Because I'm the same. So I would love to hear
yeah.
more. Like, what styles early on when you were sort of exploring folk music? What styles or traditions were you drawn to first?
Well, I started learning still when I was back in Spain. I started
Hmm.
kind of learning medieval songs on the
Yeah,
guitar, and yeah, just making almost making the gimmick with the guitar instead of playing a
yeah, yeah.
bouzouki or things like that.
Uh huh.
And just by tuning the guitar differently, like if it would have been a bouzouki or just changing the tuning,
Hmm.
it's like wow, this is so different now. Nothing that I was playing before works. I need to, yeah.
That's really interesting, because I had the same experience with the banjo. Like,
Oh, really?
the reason the banjo clicked with me is because it is not tuned like anything else that I had played before. My very first instrument is the upright bass. And that's what I went to
Okay.
school. That's what I went to school for. But I also play guitar and mandolin, and those are tuned in fourths and fifths. And so it had almost become like too much of a pattern for me, of like
Yeah,
playing scales is very much like muscle memory. And then I remember I picked up the banjo, and it's tuned to like a major triad, and I had to completely unlearn all of my muscle memory and start only thinking in terms of actual melody or harmony or something like that. So it's so cool to hear you dealt with the same thing.
and probably before in the other instruments
Mhm.
you were playing the same melodies in each instrument
Oh yeah,
because I've done that. Yeah.
This is,
I
dude.
still do. I still do. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think this is. I'm so glad that I didn't know that you were a conservatory musician at first, because I never would have guessed this would be a great opportunity to talk about this sort of stuff for other music students who might be feeling the same way. So I really appreciate you letting me go on this
Yeah.
sort of
Well,
uncharted
well, I
conversation.
haven't
Yeah,
finished
yeah,
it. I don't
yeah, yeah,
have
yeah,
a degree, but
yeah.
I did a study in there.
Hey man, I mean, like, you're better than most who finish it. Finishing it doesn't really mean much to me. It's like even going in and taking what you know and then leaving when you know that you're done. I think that there's a lot to be admired about that. So that's why I still call you a music student.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you are always studying music. Yeah.
Exactly, man. You never stop learning.
Yeah. But what has stopped me to go in the conservatory, it was that it became very boring.
Hmm.
Like it was, they were not exciting things.
Hmm.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. Oh, you're playing this song is a bit more difficult, but it's just more difficult. I don't like it more.
That's really interesting perspective. I'm being taught new things, but it's just more difficult. And especially if you're there for guitar repertoire in classical music is pretty limited compared to other instruments. So then, even in some situations, you might be having to play music that wasn't even written for guitar. Like, I know a lot of guitar students have to play the Bach cello suites on guitar as
Yeah.
part of their, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I don't know if it's because the region, but I remember that my teachers were telling me, "Oh, guitar is one of the instruments with the most pieces written for it." I don't know if it's because maybe they were lying. I don't know.
No, no, actually, no, because no, you are reminding me of something very important, and because you were in Spain originally, and that is
Yeah,
sort of ground zero for classical and Spanish, and of course Spanish guitar, right?
yeah,
So you guys have a whole different perspective on guitar than like a Western European or American conservatory would have. There's almost more pressure on you as a Spanish guitar player in a Spanish conservatory.
yeah. Well, but they were always teaching people that how not to play in the flamenco style
Okay.
because the hand, how you put your hand with the classical guitar is more like from the top, and the flamenco style you pick more the
Mhm.
strings.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were always, yeah, like kids wanted to play the flamenco style.
Oh yeah, always, because it's so sexy, right? How can you not? So I'm starting to see where your gateway drug happened, because you mentioned picking up medieval music in Spain as sort of a way to learn a different way of making music than you were taught in conservatory. So you're learning Spanish medieval music, and I think you mentioned bouzouki was one of the first instruments you picked up.
Well, I retune an acoustic guitar like if it was a
Ah, yes, yes.
bouzouki.
Okay, and so that was sort of the start for you, and from there, though, I'm really curious how you went from there into. I know you eventually moved to the UK, and you start to get really uh, interested and preoccupied with this Nordic music scene. So what? How did that transition happen? What does that
Well,
look like for you?
because I think I got somehow I well, with me moving to the UK,
Hmm.
I've learned to speak fluent English,
Okay.
or to try at it.
No, you're
But
doing great, man.
but before that, my level of English, it wasn't very good. I couldn't, if I wanted to read something to learn about it, I couldn't understand.
Okay.
To me, learning how to speak English, it gave me access to much more information, and I could go
Hmm.
deeper in many things. And yeah, same thing with building instruments. I started when I came in the UK.
Okay, so it was instrument building. That's awesome. Yeah, do you want to talk more about that?
Yes, it's been hand by hand really for me, because I started playing tagal harp when I made myself one.
And when was this?
8 8 years ago.
So 8 years ago, you were building yourself a tall harp, but that's awesome. So you built yourself one so you could play it. Uh, yeah. So where does it go from there?
And I made one, and then I didn't like it that much, so I made another one,
I see where
and
this
then
is
I made
going.
another one. Yeah, and that's how I started. Yeah, and then someone asked me, "Could you make one for me?" So I made one, and yeah,
And it just keeps growing from there. So
yeah.
what?
The money that I made making instruments, I invested it in tools. So I have
Okay.
a decent workshop now. So it's good.
Okay, two directions I want to go with this. First, I think first I'll go this way. What made you want to build yourself a toggle harpa 8 years ago?
Oh, I wanted to have a Tegel harp more than 8 years ago.
Oh, okay. So where does that start? What about it? Like, how did you first experience it?
So
Or yeah, yeah,
it maybe it's gonna sound very typical, but
yeah, yeah,
the 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 time when I wanted a Tegel harpa is when I first started the first Word Drone album.
yeah, yeah. It's, I love it.
And my my thought on it, I couldn't make my head around what was that violin out of tune that I hated, but I loved it at the same time.
I love it.
And then I started loving it more than hating it, and but it's because it was so different to what I would have listened before.
Mhm. And you had already had this fascination with medieval music, so then you stumble upon Vardruna and you hear medieval music in an almost entirely different setting than
Yeah,
we had
yeah,
previously heard that. And so of all of the sounds that you were hearing, it was the toggle harpa that really stood out to you because of its hideous beauty, is what I like to call it.
yeah, yeah. And I think I probably it's because the first I've ever listened, but probably still my favorite.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I've got my wife got me this one for my birthday a couple
Mhm,
years ago back here, and I because I was already a double bass player, I was used to bowing and all
mhm.
of this. It was just like a new shape of bowing, but it was still bowing. And so
Yeah,
it
exactly.
was that one came the most naturally to me just because I'm not good at wind instruments. I for some reason I cannot get the breath right for wind instruments. I run out of breath after a single bar or something like that. So it's always been string instruments for me too. So I relate to you on that. Um, so the this all really starts for you with making instruments. That really starts with you wanting to make your own toggle harpa, but then wanting to do it
Well,
better and better. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know where to get one,
Yep.
so I made one,
hmm
and
So what was that like for you? First learning how to make a toggle harpa, because not many musicians have that relationship with music or their instruments, where if they want
oh
an instrument, they have to make it. So I would love for you to
yeah,
talk a little bit more about that.
this is something we can talk more about because that's
Yeah, yeah.
really something going on there.
Cool, man. Let's
But
dive right
uh,
in.
to make my first instrument, I as I do many things,
Mhm.
I I refused to search any information. I just saw one and I did one. That it sounded, but then after I made one, I said maybe I have to look how to make it better. I have to, and yeah, I started learning more. Like in the end, it's like making a violin.
Mhm.
Not the same process, but it's theory that you can apply as well.
Mhm.
If a violin maker hears me saying that, probably will want to
Oh,
kill
that's all
me.
right.
But
That's all right.
well, there are big differences
Mhm.
between, but there are similarities as well.
I think yeah, we all know what you mean. Yeah, yeah. We can let the
Yeah,
violin makers be mad, but we know what you mean.
yeah, exactly. I don't know what we were talking about. No. Oh
Yeah,
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 about
making, yep.
getting the information. Yeah,
Mhm.
I always like to try like new techniques or learning if I can,
Mhm.
and not get stuck and in the end not not progressing.
Mhm. So where I really want is so ah how do I word this? So what I really want to hear more about, if you have anything more to say about it, is sort of what that experience of making your own instrument, how that might have um, changed or influenced the way that you view being a musician, having to actually make your own instrument. Do you think that that has had any lasting effect on you that it might not have had if you never had to make your own instrument?
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely, and it has connected me to music in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. So what about it in particular? If you can even try to pinpoint it down
Okay,
to a couple things. Yeah.
when you see, well, not you, but when people see a
Yeah.
guitar,
Yeah.
they see music.
Mhm.
I see a tree, and I see the end of the process being an instrument playing music.
That's beautiful, man. So like, instead of only seeing music in the instrument, you're seeing music in the actual source of the wood that you're
Yeah,
working with.
for making not all, but most of my instruments, I try to get wood that I harvest, and I have it. I don't know. With me, I have pieces of wood that they've been with me in the workshop 8 years, or it's, I I I don't know if I would enjoy the same if I have to play an instrument made by someone else, because I couldn't have that connection anymore with the instrument. And even with my electric guitars, I have to do something to them.
You have to put a little bit of yourself into them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just strip them down, start them again. But yeah, it's a different way to connect to music.
Yeah, man, totally. In a way, I'm very envious of you and other instrument makers because I remember when I was in music college, um, I still didn't really know what I was doing with it at the time that this happened that I'm about to talk about. But in a music history class, this was only a little bit before I realized that music history is just what I loved. We had a violin maker come and visit the class, and he actually walked us through the process of making a violin. And this is like an old school New Englander. So this guy was like in his
Mhm.
70s. He had just the most calloused hands you can imagine. He just smelled like wood shavings. And
Yeah,
he something about the way that he talked about the process with such reverence, like almost like a religious or spiritual appreciation for the process of working with wood, was so inspirational to me. And I had always wondered, and even to this day, I wonder how different life would be if I took up an offer to like go and be his assistant, and to sort of learn the process from him, because I've always really appreciated woodworkers in particular because of how much musicians owe to that line of work. And even
yeah.
more
It's never too late.
it's I know, yeah. I mean, like in an apartment right now, and also a PhD student, I got my hands full. But I do think that I will eventually swing back around to it because it is something that has always seduced me, and but it's not easy at the same time. I would never expect to just dive in, be like, "Oh, I'm having a great
Yes.
time."
Well, I say I make instruments for people.
Mhm.
And it's part of how I make money.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I also would say everyone, if they can, to make their own instrument,
Mhm.
because even if it's not the best one, it's going to be special for them.
Yeah, I really want to make there are two. I could either try making my own my own tal harpa, or I've always wanted to actually try and make my own banjo because that is like
Oh yeah.
actually that's the probably the best instrument to start with is a banjo because they're kind of supposed to sound like junk. That is their appeal. Is they sound like a tal harpa. They sound so raw that like if it sounds bad when you make one, that means you probably did something right.
Well, it's a good way to start. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. Maybe this is what gets me to finally try once I get some free time.
Yeah.
So so you get into this making instruments, and I'm assuming that all of the other instruments that I see you play on Instagram, you've also made yourself, like the saz, or were those
Yeah.
instruments? Yep.
Yeah, as well, and some others that I haven't sold.
That is so now I have a whole new appreciation when I see you play these instruments. Like, holy shit, that guy made that instrument that he's playing.
But it's because it's part of enjoying the process of making it and then learning it. Is
Mhm.
I don't know. Is I like it that way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can tell. I can tell that that's definitely what gets you going. So speaking of what gets you going, when does Seidrblot come into the picture? Because so clearly I can see that you are led into this style of music. I'm assuming starting with Vardruna, and you sort of go
Yeah.
outward. You go outward from there. So, at what point does Seidrblot come into the picture for you?
So I was wanting to make a project
Hmm.
using the instruments I was making,
Hmm.
and one of my bandmate in Söderblot, Tom, he
Okay.
bought a tail harpa from me.
Hmm.
That's how I met him, and we started playing together in a project that didn't go any farther.
Okay.
But then I think it was 2017, your big biking festival.
Okay.
We happened to meet there, me, Tom, and John, my two bandmates in Söderblot,
Hmm.
and we agreed to do a jam session next week, and that's how it started. And from there, jamming, yeah, we started playing in my workshop,
Hmm.
and yeah, all very raw from the bottom.
Awesome. Okay, so now this is a really awesome way to segue into the other topic I wanted to talk to you about before we talk a little bit more about
Mhm.
Cyberblot. And that is sort of like the UK medieval market scene. Because I've never been. I would love to one day go. But something that I've noticed from just not only my research that I'm doing as a student, but also in just talking to all these musicians, is how important these big medieval gatherings are for this music scene. And I have yet to
Yes.
really talk to someone who is from the UK side. I almost exclusively have talked to people from Scandinavia. So I would love for you to, I guess, some starting questions I have for you is sort of what is the medieval market like in the UK, and sort of what makes it so special to you, at least.
I think you have two kind of
Hmm.
like medieval fairs.
Hmm.
Ones that are more reenactment
Hmm.
focused.
Yep.
That they are great, to be
Okay.
honest. I think the level of reenactors in the UK is really good.
I'm learning
I
that.
I, I don't do reenactment myself, but
Okay.
Tom and John, my two bandmates, they do.
Hmm.
And yeah, the level of the reenactment groups they are in and other ones is, I think, is great. It's
Hmm.
really good. And then you have other markets or festivals that allow more for fantasy.
Like a Ren fair.
Yes, it's more like, or some they call them like Viking festivals, but
Yeah.
it's it's a lot of the Viking TV series and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
LARP. Well,
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun.
Hmm.
We have played in one of a festival that is not very strict reenactment,
Hmm.
and yeah, we play there every year, and it's great.
Hmm.
People enjoy it. I guess that you need to let people enjoy different sides of it.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree with that. Especially talking about Nordic music, you get that same spectrum, right? Of what you just talked about with the medieval scene. You have one side which is more reenactment, and then the other side
Mhm.
which is like fantasy and people just having fun, right? And so I'm very familiar with that, like trying to sort of sort through the differences and seeing the things that fall in between. I actually think it makes it more fun to see sort of like how people mix the two. I don't know if you have
Yeah,
any thoughts on that.
yeah, and not just in the Viking, even like
Hmm.
mixing with other
Hmm.
genres.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, like I think, yeah, you need to let the people enjoy.
yeah,
That's the most important.
yeah. As long as everyone's like on their best behavior, yeah, just let them enjoy
Well,
what they want. Yeah, yeah.
of course, yeah, yeah.
I love it. No, man, that's a very I appreciate you sharing that perspective. And I think the last question I would want to ask for you then is just while we're still on specifically like medieval stuff,
Mhm.
is is there anything I know we've already talked a little bit about how one of the main reasons that you went to medieval music was to un unlearn some of the conservatory stuff.
Mhm.
But is there anything, and if there is anything, feel free to share a little bit
Oh well,
deeper. Oh, yeah, yeah.
also in where I used to live in Spain,
Hmm.
it was a small town up in the mountains,
Okay.
but the biggest city around the town, that wasn't big. It was something like 40,000 people living there,
Okay.
but is very well known for very well preserved medieval walls.
Okay.
So it's a medieval city, and every year is a medieval fair
Okay.
with musicians, performers, and that made me enjoy that side as well. Just
Hmm.
not saying, "Oh, I just want to play medieval music," and oh,
Yeah, it was
there
much
was,
more a part of your of where you come from.
yeah, enjoying, and yeah, also learning to enjoy the that side of the music.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's thank you for sharing that because Spain usually flies under the radar for people when talking about medieval music, but Spain has a huge medieval, not just music, but like
Oh,
medieval
yeah, yeah, yeah,
scene.
yeah, yeah,
It's
definitely,
crazy.
and actually, most of the instruments that are played in Central Europe, like Germany,
Hmm.
uh, the same in Spain,
Yeah, yeah. I
or
love it. I
or the rebec, the instrument rebec.
Yeah, yeah.
There is traditionally from Spain as well. Is
Hmm.
Yeah, it's tradition. Or the hurdy-gurdy
Hmm.
is a version as well from the north of Spain. The bagpipes.
Hmm. I hope that someday Spain gets more of the attention that it deserves with the medieval music scene because there are even a lot of really cool bands right now out of Spain
Yeah,
that are doing this stuff, and so I look forward to a future in which people do pay more attention to the Spanish medieval scene because there's a lot of really cool stuff going on there.
yeah, but I think the musicians are good,
Hmm.
but the supportive scene is not as big,
Hmm.
because what happens in Spain is that if you have a musician that is very good and is giving you an awesome show, but is born in Spain, you don't go.
Oh
But
yeah.
if it's another musician that it comes from a different country and it plays shit, you go. That I've seen that many times. Yeah.
Fascinating. That's really good to know. Maybe we should keep that in mind going forward. So I get the question. So thank you for all of that, man. I really appreciate you sharing that. That's really awesome. So I guess what I was setting up for though is if you have any, is there anything maybe deeper for you that draws you to older things, to medieval music, ancient music. I notice you have a lot of runes tattooed on your arms, uh, and especially the use of your music. Is there anything before we talk about Seidrblot specifically, or maybe this will segue to Seidrblot? Is there anything special to you about this older time period that sort of draws you in?
I feel I feel connected to it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hmm.
It calls me. It also, I think it's as well because it was a much more natural related time.
Hmm.
Not like now that, everything is, well, it's great because you and I are talking, just
The
in,
irony is not lost.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, all that closeness to nature,
Hmm.
and it calls me a lot. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, because especially that makes a lot of sense after you've told me about your relationship to trees. So it's I completely agree with you, and I noticed that is a recurring theme. And you point out the irony very well, right? Is that we will say, oh, we will loathe the technology and everything while we are talking across the world on
Yeah.
on Zoom, right? That's always a bit of an irony to it, but I think that people are allowed to be, you know, inconsistent in that way. Where I don't think there's a contradiction to sort of lamenting the state of the world while also enjoying some of its luxuries, like being able to video call someone across the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. It's Yeah, I know. Maybe it's like a probably nostalgia to the unknown because many people, probably me as well, will romanticize it
Mhm.
a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Who knows what the hell would have been living in that time?
Yeah, but I think there's something meaningful to at least the idea that we do yearn for something, at least the idea of it. And this is what I talk a fair bit about this, where even if we are not nostalgic for an actual reality that existed, maybe nothing of what we are thinking about was ever reality. But
Hmm.
I think there is something really important in acknowledging that there's an idea or something abstract that we are looking to, that we want, that is missing. And maybe we are wrong to put that in the past and say that, oh, this was a past time. But I still think that there's something very valid and important to the fact that so many people feel this way, even if it's more of an idea than actual history. Yep.
But I think that it's possibly that has been passed through generations because the the more you will leaving the past behind, the more hours you have to work, the more commitments you have, the more, and yeah, in a way, I would like to live without all of that. Just knowing
Yep.
that if I don't hunt, I don't eat. So that's what I have to do.
I think that what you just said is a perfect compliment to sort of what I just rambled on about, right? Is because even if a lot of the things that we talk about are more fantasy, there is the reality that things were simpler back
Oh
then,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? And I 100% agree with you that I think we would all benefit from less bullshit, less obligations, and just something that's a little bit more raw. Like you said,
well,
if I want to eat, I have to hunt.
yes, yes. Or even mental health problems that we have nowadays.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's possible that they would have been a big issue as they are now at that time.
Yeah. I mean, especially not as prevalent, right? It's kind
Yeah,
of no, I think, but it's funny because we might get into like hairier territory talking about mental health 1,000 years ago. But at the same
yeah,
time, I think what at least you and I can agree that if all I had to worry about was fishing and foraging, I'd be happier. Even if I lived 20 years shorter, I'd still be
yeah,
happier.
yeah, yeah. If my job was going fishing, and yeah, looking for berries or going if I can hunt, it would change totally.
Yeah. And this is beautiful because I feel like this is a good segue into Seidrblot and sort of what role or sort of like what that music means to you, and maybe how you might use your music in Seidrblot to sort of like express these ideas that we're talking about here. So if I could put it into a more condensed question, what does the music of Seidrblot sort of mean to you, and what does it do for you as a mode of expression?
That's a very good question, actually.
Thank you, man. I like to think I'm
And
getting the hang of this.
what I really love about playing in Söderblad is that when we are playing, rehearsing, many times we just zone out and go in the journey
Hmm.
while playing. And I think that's a lot of what the music shows
Hmm.
is, yeah, every song is a little bit like a little journey. And how we write the music is probably different to how you would write, I don't know, like a song from the genre, but to me makes sense because it's what it helps me zoning out.
Hmm. So in a way, the music is sort of your way to, maybe even if we could talk about something more specific than just zoning out, right? I'm going to assume that you might be zoning out
Or
to that time that you are sort of thinking about, especially when you're playing music that's this raw, right?
oh yes, yes, yes,
Hmm.
definitely. Or there's there's a lot of things. There's a lot
Hmm.
of emotions and feelings in the music.
Oh yeah,
One of the Save the Blood songs that we call it the funeral song.
I love that one.
It is that song. The first time I wrote the melody and I did that is because I 100% don't remember it was after a drum journey or something, but I got the feeling that I wasn't going to be with my grandparents when they would die.
Okay.
So I ended writing the song, and it became more special because during that COVID thing, I lost both of my grandparents,
Mm.
not
Sorry,
because
man.
of COVID, but it was traveling restrictions and all of that crap.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. It's like it helped me dealing with all of that, even if the song was written before, even. But I kind of, that song to me represents that.
Thanks for
So
sharing that.
it's
That I mean,
there's
like, I really appreciate you sharing something so personal, right? But I think
it's
that
okay.
adds a lot of weight.
Is is the truth. That's how the idea of the song came to my mind.
Hmm. I had something very similar happen where one of the very first tunes I ever wrote on the banjo. You might actually like this. The very first thing I actually did with the banjo was I actually tuned it like a toggle harpa, but kind of
That's good.
reverse. So like, or at least a traditional toggle harpa, where you have sort of like the fifth and then the
Yeah.
second scale degree on top, like a traditional
Hmm.
yumiko. But the I couldn't tune the string up or else it would snap. So instead, I tuned it down to be um, GDA, right? And so
Okay.
I was sort of experimenting with playing that with the melody string on top with the second scale degree, and I ended up actually writing something in major, and but I didn't really know where it came from, and but a week later we had to put my dear dog down. Um, and it was one of these things where while I was in the middle of coming up with this tune, I had already started writing it before we knew this was going to happen. But considering what happened while I was writing it, all of a sudden melody and this piece of music I'm writing ends up being entirely emotionally about the experience of losing a dog who was very close to me.
Hmm.
So I relate to you entirely on how music can, even if you don't write it specifically for something at the beginning, something can happen that you associate that song with, that for the rest of
Yeah,
your life, to you, that's what the song is about.
yeah, and that's also an awesome memory for you. And
Yep.
man,
And
that's great.
yeah, and to this day, Alyssa, my wife, she's a very talented artist, and she drew this sketch of me and the dog, and that ended up being the single artwork for when I put that song up. And so then she sort of like solidified that in the art. So I I completely agree with you, man, and I see it's so important to musicians like us to be able to use our music to process those really difficult things to go through.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's better processing thing, at least to me, processing things with music.
Hmm.
I think I've been doing that, yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Because now you said that, and I started thinking, and I even got memories from when I was 17 or 18 years old.
Hmm.
I started playing guitar and writing songs when I was getting angry with, with this or with that, and it did help.
Definitely, it's definitely healthier than like going and just breaking shit in town. I
Oh yeah, well,
mean, I'm sure there's plenty. I'm sure there's none of that either, right? But no. So this is really, man. Thank you for this. I'm really
but
enjoying getting to know you with all this. But yeah, you have more to say.
yeah, I just realized that
Hmm.
I I use the music
Hmm.
in a way of talking out things
Hmm.
instead of really talking to people,
I relate.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and I yeah realized that times when I haven't written that much music, whether it's one style or another, it really has affected me more. I feel like I've kept things inside
Hmm.
without putting them out with the music. So yeah, music it can help you many ways.
Yeah, man. Thanks for bringing that up because Alyssa and I used to have a joke that whenever I wasn't feeling right, she would ask me, "When's the last time you played music?" And the answer is almost always not enough, right? And so even she can tell
Yeah,
when I haven't played music enough because musicians, right? Like we get
yeah,
weird in the head if we don't express it
yeah,
that way.
exactly.
So I'm thank you for bringing that up, man. I think that's really important.
And well, for other musicians, that if you get in the spiral that you don't feel like playing, so you don't play, but as you don't play, you don't feel good,
Yeah.
but you don't feel like playing, and then just force yourself to play.
Yeah. I
Is
feel it. I feel attacked, but in a good way. Like
Yeah,
I
and
think,
no, I mean
yeah, yeah.
myself too, because I've been weeks without playing an instrument because
Hmm.
I wasn't feeling like it, and
Hmm.
then wow, after 10 days or something, this feels so good. Why I haven't been playing? Well,
Yeah,
force yourself to play. Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
good lesson, man. But I guess so with Seidrblot, so far you do not have a full length album yet, but you have two EPs, correct?
yeah. And we have been working in the album that we're going to release. That
Yep.
is almost finished, but
Awesome.
it's one thing and another thing and another thing, and it always get it gets delays. Yeah, we're working now on just a little taste, the little backing tracks to
Mm-hmm.
fill gaps and things. But yeah, it's pretty much ready.
Oh, cool. Hell yeah, man. So
We're
this
really hoping it's going to be released this year. Yeah,
amazing. So awesome. That's a nice surprise. So that actually
yeah,
makes this question, I guess, even more relevant. What I was going to ask is, at least for me, whenever I'm writing an EP, I'm using it as a learning experience. What can I practice? What can I try? What can I learn about recording? Have your first two EPs ever felt like that to you, where it's more of a process of learning? And if so, what sorts of lessons have you learned just from the process of writing the content for an EP and then recording it and then mixing and mastering and then all of that, because it's quite a process.
yes, yes. In in the first EP, it's just done by myself,
Okay.
and it was put up there to put material up,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's demo quality. So
Mm-hmm.
it really not. No, I'm not great with that sound engineering thing, but definitely about writing. That if you want to be efficient when you're recording, do yourself and do yourself a demo at home,
Yep.
and that will avoid you a lot of wasted time in the studio, because you're going to waste that time doing your demo, and then you're going to know what you have to do.
Yeah, so you're happy that you decided to do like this demo at home, sort of learn the whole process yourself before actually going into a studio or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and now, well, it's because now things are moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
that we are going to introduce some backing tracks on the stage,
Cool.
and all of that is being done by John
Mm-hmm.
mostly. So yeah, he's the one that I think knows more of us three about all the technical side about programming and recording.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So considering you have two EPs under your belt as a band, what did you want to do differently? Or what lessons from doing the EPs did you learn, other than the make sure that you know what you're doing before you have actually gone into making a full length album? Because in a lot of ways, that's almost an entirely different animal. But what did you take from the experience of doing those two EPs going forward?
Well, from doing those two and from this one that
Mm-hmm.
we are in the process, I would say that do it quick and spontaneous.
Yeah.
Yeah, do your demo, go in the computer, do your demo quick as it is, because I feel that we have songs that we've written years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be released this year,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't feel fresh for me.
Mm. That's a really that's a really interesting point, because you can typically tell that excitement through the recording, right? So like when you have something new and
Yeah,
fresh and you're all excited about it, right? You're so stoked. You're like, oh, this is so good. But then, yeah, when you start to retread stuff that you've already had, but you haven't recorded yet, I have never really considered how that is almost an entirely different difficulty in the
yeah.
process of recording.
I even would say not even bother with EPs, just go for singles.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Get
Hmm.
focused in a single, get it done. It's fresh, it's genuine, and go for the next.
I've noticed more and more people doing that, where like to actually just focus more on singles than EPs, because it does carry on that excitement of like, I just did this, lightning in a bottle. I have done this and I'm very proud of it, rather than write this thing, sit on it for 1, 2, maybe 3 years, and then it comes time to
Yeah,
do it again and you're like, oh, I don't love this tune anymore.
yeah. It's you lose that momentum. The
Mhm.
that spark is new. I love it because it's new.
Momentum is a very good word for that.
Yeah.
So since we don't have it yet, I'm just going to ask, what can people expect differently besides the backing tracks, if anything, or is there anything you are particularly proud of the new album about that you just sort of want to put a spotlight on?
We have been working on the vocal harmonies,
Okay.
so that's something that we are enjoying quite a lot at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Working as three with vocal harmonies, and the guys are upgrading the drumming as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think what they can expect is what they see on stage.
Awesome. And that's the dream, right? You sort of a lot of people really want the album to carry that same energy of when you actually see someone
Yeah,
in person, because nothing's more disappointing than seeing a band you love live and then you buy the album at the show and then you put it in
yeah,
the
and it's
car on your drive home and you're like, oh.
totally different. Yeah,
Very
yeah,
common feeling.
that's why we are also doing this, introducing the backing tracks in the new songs, as
Mhm.
well as we are adapting to introduce them on a stage at the
Okay.
same time, because it wouldn't make sense if we don't use them on a stage
Mhm.
and they are on the album.
I get that completely.
That would be the situation that you said, but in the other
Mhm.
way around.
Yeah.
You listen an album that is all of this, but then that doesn't sound on a stage.
Yeah, that's one of the difficulties of sort of this very divided music industry, might be the word I'm going to use,
Hmm.
between where we are so divided between listening on streaming constantly and then also seeing live music, where actually sometimes we can get disoriented if they're too different from each other, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And I totally appreciate when you listen, like this new last few years, the quality of the recordings has been amazing. You listen a band
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like you're listening a soundtrack in the cinema,
Yeah.
and it's amazing. But I also like the rawness of the people
Mm-hmm.
playing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's something that I'm always harping on. Musical pun intended, but like people, and my listeners are going to be very familiar with this, that because I talk about this quite a bit, where like we do have almost, no, not almost, we have the most tools at our disposal as musicians than anyone who came before us in terms of
Oh
how
yeah,
we can record something in our bedroom, right? But there's a danger that a lot of musicians can come into where they put way too much attention on those tools and not enough attention on the musicianship, where you don't need to practice anything if you can just do 100 takes. But then the problem is, if you just do those 100 takes, the recording ends up sounding like 100 different takes, and
yeah,
you lose that raw listening to a musician, and you can also risk over polishing, too many effects. This is the only time I usually make a negative comment in an album review, is almost always just the production value. Does this sound too clean? Does it sound too polished? Right? Where's the
yeah.
human element? Yeah.
I completely get that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something I always fighting against a little
Yeah,
bit,
because it's hard.
because yeah, I like it. I like it to sound natural as well.
Mm-hmm. Very
You
much
know,
so.
even if with the band we are upgrading to have the all the backing tracks in ear
Mm-hmm.
monitors, everything. I also want to play by bonfires as well.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And that's what your music's good for.
Well, that's my favorite. If I'm
Yeah.
honest, small crowds, small places. that's what I enjoy more
I completely agree with you, man.
personally.
That's how I prefer it too. So we are kindred
It's
spirits on that.
it's also amazing to share your music for uh like an amazing big number of people.
Yeah.
And
Like,
don't get me wrong, when
yeah,
that
yeah,
when that have happened to us,
yeah.
that we've been very lucky. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's endless, endless being grateful to that people just
Yeah.
spending the time just by watching us. And that doesn't mean that playing in a smaller, a smaller event a smaller. It doesn't need to be even an event.
Yeah, yeah.
It can be with your friends.
100%, man.
That atmosphere is very special.
Yeah. It's very human. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, Visy, it has been great having you on, man. I really enjoyed talking to you
Oh,
and
me too, man.
getting to know you. This has been
How long have
my
we been?
what? Oh, I think it's been like an hour and 10 or an hour.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It flew by.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, but no, man, seriously, one of my favorite parts. No, probably my favorite part of doing what I do is getting to know people like you in the process of doing this. So I really appreciate you coming on to
Oh
talk
man,
to
it's
us.
been awesome talking to you too.
I mean, and this won't be the last. You know, I'll whenever that album comes out, I'll be sure to have you back on. All right.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. I'm also writing some songs for wanting to release an EP myself.
Okay. Hell yeah.
That songs with the top sur and
Hmm.
throat singing, not in the same style as Seidrblot, but
Hmm.
still me,
Beautiful,
I
man.
guess.
Yeah, can't wait for it. Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna have you back on when the time arises. But yeah, it's been so great to getting to know you, and I've really loved hearing about your sort of your musical upbringing and what drives you. You know, it's been really cool. So if other people, Vizzy, want to learn more about you, follow you, where can they do so?
They can follow through my Instagram account,
Hmm.
Visy Bloodaxe,
Yep.
or my band,
Hmm.
uh, Seidrblot,
Yep, both of these will be
YouTube.
linked. Both all of this will be linked in whatever
Yeah,
description that anyone will have in front of them.
yeah,
Um,
but mainly through Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome, and I highly recommend for anyone who doesn't. I highly recommend following Vizzy just because I love your clips of you just sort of jamming out on those
Cheers, mate.
instruments
Thank you.
that you make. No, it's really great. It's something to admire, man. So hang out after I turn the recording off. But other than that, man, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great having you.
And cheers to everyone listening.